Welcome, historians, to Unit 2, Notes 2, and it's called Manifest Destiny. Go ahead and find the page that looks like this in your packet, and we will get started. You will need at least 3 different colored pencils for this activity, so if you want to pause and find some colored pencils, red, green, and yellow are the colors we used in class, but I think any 3 colors would work fine. Okay, let's begin. So the term manifest destiny is, as you can see in your packet, it comes from a newspaper journalist in 1845 who first used the term, which came to be used by many Americans in looking back at this time period from 1803 to 1853. It kind of encompassed the idea that Americans had at the time that they were really destined, so there's that word destiny, they were destined to expand the country from the original 13 states, which hugged the coast of the Atlantic Ocean, to spread all the way across to the Pacific coastline. Many Americans felt it was almost our God-given right, that it was a duty that we had, a duty in terms of spreading this blessing of democracy across to new lands and the people who lived in those areas. This is where you'll want to maybe pause the video and do some coloring. Notice that for each of the different ways that we were able to expand our country, there are different areas of the countries that match that color. So for example, you can see the only red area in the map, which is labeled 1848, matches the color for the war box at the bottom of your notes. The only war we fought to gain land was against Mexico. And so we gained that land through what is known as the Mexican Cession. So you'll color those 2 red. Notice that across the bottom you'll see the box for treaties is yellow and purchases is colored in green. In terms of land that we got through treaties, so we didn't fight a war, we didn't do a purchase, those include Florida, which we signed a treaty with Spain to acquire, and that happened in 1819. We also signed a treaty to get the Texas annexation, so that area in 1845 that includes almost all of Texas and parts of Oklahoma. And then up in the upper northwest, you'll see in 1846 we signed a treaty with the British for the Oregon country. You'll also notice that there are 2 areas colored in green. A really large one, that's the Louisiana Purchase that we bought from France in 1803. And then the Gadsden Purchase, that tiny little section down in the southwest corner, which we purchased in 1853. And that really rounds out the continental United States. Later on, we'll add Alaska and Hawaii. In the lower right-hand corner of your notes, you can see 2 boxes, one labeled positives and one labeled negatives. So we'll talk quickly about the different effects of our expansion toward the west. The positives include things like expanding the size of our country by 3 times. And as we expanded, we found very rich farming land, including where we live today, here in Minnesota. We also found many natural resources like lumber and gold. All of this, the farming and the natural resources, was very good for our economy. Lots of natural resources means that we could make lots of products, different kinds of products. As people moved west, we populated the lands with Americans, which means that states could form. So we added to the number of states in our country. And the fact that there was so much land available attracted new immigrants from Europe mainly, who in their home countries really had no chance of having land because it was all taken. Those countries have been around for such a long time. Now, of course, with positives, generally there are negatives, and there certainly were some negatives to our expansion out west, including taking land from Native American tribes who had lived in this area for hundreds of years. We killed off herds of buffalo by the millions. We caused a war in our effort to move west. We declared war on Mexico to gain more land. We used up much of our natural resources very quickly without a thought of how to replace them. And finally, the enslavement of Africans spread west as slave owners brought slaves with them as they moved west. And with that increase in slavery began arguments over slavery that divided our nation and ultimately ended in a civil war in the 1860s. And that wraps up our notes to Manifest Destiny. Have a great day.